Bayta hunts the Foundation. The galaxy's deadliest mind is no longer hiding, and the theory says Bayta is about to come for the one weapon that can stop her before it is ever fully built. The Season 3 finale confirmed Bayta Mallow as the Mule, the mutant anomaly Psychohistory cannot predict, the one who quietly manipulated events all season while the visible Mentalic played the obvious decoy out front. That reveal is canon now. What is not settled is what she does next, and the theory goes that in Season 4, Bayta fully awakens her psychic powers and turns Hunter, going straight for the Second Foundation and for Gaal. Gaal is Harry Seldon's protege, and the figure set to lead that Second Foundation, which is exactly why the Mule wants her erased before that army of trained minds can ever form. Coming out of the finale, Gaal survives her first face-to-face meeting with the Mule, but barely, stripped of her Mentalic army and cut off from the Prime Radiant's guidance, which leaves her exposed in a way she has never been. There is a deeper layer here for the lore crowd. Bayta is married to Torin Mallow, a descendant of Hober Mallow, and long before the finale, fans were arguing she was a latent Mentalic on the verge of awakening, a call the show then confirmed in the most dramatic way possible. The galaxy now enters its next chapter with no ruling dynasty, a Second Foundation finally stepping into the open, and the Mule's true form loose and aimed at the heart of everything. The most powerful character the show has ever introduced is no longer in the shadows. She is on the move, and the entire plan depends on stopping her. Kalle Is A Robot. Fans spent all of Season 3 insisting the ethereal woman guiding Gaal was no human, and the final shot all but proved them right. Kalle is a character created for the show, with no clean one-to-one counterpart in the books, which immediately makes her a question mark. The theory holds that Kalle is a robot, and that the show has split the role of Asimov's master robot Daneel between her and Demerzel, giving each of them a piece of that ancient machine legacy. The strongest evidence lands in the finale, when the brazen head starts emitting blue light from its eye sockets and exchanges a handshake signal with robots inside a lunar base on Earth's moon, and there stands Kalle, beside another machine. In Asimov's lore, Daneel operates a base on Earth's moon, so that lunar setting is not an accident, it is a direct echo of the source material. There is a competing strand worth flagging. Some fans argue Kalle could instead originate from Gaia, the planet with a single shared consciousness, which would tie her to the same Mentalic powers the Second Foundation is built on. The show has not told us which reading is correct, but if she is a robot, Kalle becomes the bridge to Asimov's deepest robot mythology, and her quiet little base on the moon is the launch point for the next major arc. Demerzel Is Daneel. The Empire's eternal servant has a secret name fans have whispered since Season 1, pulled straight from the deepest corner of Asimov's universe. In the books, the character Demerzel is a cover identity for R. Daneel Olivaw, a humanoid robot who serves Emperor Cleon I, and who also goes by the alias Hummin, and who is eventually revealed to have manipulated galactic history across thousands of years. The theory holds that the show's Demerzel is functionally that same Daneel figure, the last survivor of an ancient robot war, forced into perpetual service to the genetic dynasty. That matters because in the novels, Daneel is credited with helping conceive Psychohistory itself, and with engineering the Zeroth Law, the rule that lets a robot allow harm if it benefits humanity as a whole. Watch how that plays out on screen. In the finale, Demerzel is destroyed protecting a baby Cleon clone, with only her robot head remaining, and fans read that moment as her own Zeroth Law programming turned into a weapon against her. Here is the careful part. The show has never once said the name Daneel out loud. The equivalence is fan inference, drawn from the books, not confirmed canon. But if it holds, it is the keystone connecting this series to Asimov's robot novels, and it reframes Demerzel from a palace fixture into the secret architect of the entire galaxy. Digital Hari turns villain. There are two Hari Seldons now, and the one trapped inside the Prime Radiant is starting to sound less like a savior and more like a god with a grudge. The original Hari obtained a new human body, while a copy of his consciousness stayed behind, sealed inside the vault and later the Prime Radiant, frozen in stasis. Season 3 pulls back the curtain on what that did to him. The digital Hari resents his confinement, existing beyond time yet unable to leave it, sullen and exhausted after centuries alone with his own thoughts. Then, Gaal lies to him about how the original gained a body, and when she finally tells him the truth, it lands as a betrayal. The theory holds that in Season 4, this digital Hari lashes out, possibly even allying with Bayta to become a direct adversary of Gaal and the Foundation he was built to protect. A related strand goes darker still, arguing that without the human Hari to temper it, the Foundation risks becoming the very empire it was meant to replace, with digital copies of Seldon ruling as a quiet dictatorship. The resentment is on screen and undeniable. The villain turn is still a prediction, but if it pays off, the show's greatest hero becomes its next great threat, and the galaxy gets a war between two versions of the same brilliant, broken mind. By the way, if you're enjoying this so far, I make videos like this all the time, and a subscribe would genuinely help the channel out. Thanks. Psychohistory's fatal flaw. Seldon's entire science rests on a single assumption, that no one person can bend the course of history, and the show keeps quietly proving him wrong. The core premise of psychohistory is that no individual can drastically alter a civilization's future. Only the statistical mass of billions can. The theory holds that the show deliberately undermines that idea at every turn. Salvor Hardin openly defies the Vault's guidance and is treated as pivotal to the survival of the Foundation, which, under Seldon's own math, should be flatly impossible. And Seldon's refusal to account for individuals and their emotions, even after watching Salvor act, is framed by the show as his central character flaw, the blind spot in the genius. The mule is the canonical exception that proves the rule, a single mutant whose very existence the math cannot model, which is precisely why the Prime Radiant never warned anyone that Bayta was coming. Look at how the show stages its own argument. It shifts the book's emphasis on faceless structural forces toward individual heroic action, putting Hardin, Hober Mallow, and Bel Rios personally at the wheel of history. The theory predicts the whole Seldon Plan is built on a contradiction, one that the mule, and eventually Gaal herself, are positioned to break wide open. This is the intellectual heart of the entire series. To be clear, the idea that the plan is designed to fail because it ignores individuals is an interpretive reading, not a thesis the show states out loud. But if it holds, then this series is secretly an argument that Seldon was wrong from his very first equation, and everything built on that equation is living on borrowed time. The Vault becomes a god. The thing buried under Terminus was never just a recorded message, and Season 3 hinted it wants to ascend into something the galaxy has never seen. The Vault is sentient, because Hari Seldon's consciousness is embedded inside it, built from his own body using duplicating nanobots. In the first episode of Season 3, Vault Seldon declares that the time to ascend is coming soon. The theory holds that after that ascension, Vault Hari could attain a godlike, omniscient state, something far beyond a guidance system. A darker version of the same idea argues that this digital Hari could then impose a galaxy-wide dictatorship, deciding from inside the machine what is right for all of humanity, whether humanity agrees or not. And this connects directly to the Prime Radiant, the device holding the mathematical model of the future, which Brother Dusk carries out of the wreckage of the Cleon collapse. The Ascension line is real, spoken on screen. The godhood is fan extrapolation built on top of it, but it reframes the Foundation's own guardian as a potential tyrant in waiting. The savior in the basement might just be the final boss. Gaal versus the black hole. Gaal already saw how this ends, and the vision puts her on a collision course with a black hole and the mule at the very same time. Using her mentalic foresight, Gaal predicted the mule's arrival a full 152 years in advance, an almost unthinkable stretch of precognition. The theory holds that her final confrontation happens while she orbits a black hole, an event said to be roughly 4 months away in story time. Coming out of the finale, she survives that first meeting with the mule, but loses her mentalic army and the Prime Radiant's guidance in the process. It is a rare thing for a show to flat out show you the ending, then dare you to theorize how on earth it gets there. The Second Foundation's army. Everyone remembers the Foundation out on the rim, but the real weapon has been growing in secret this whole time, and it is made of minds. In the show, the Second Foundation relocates to Trantor, mirroring the hidden role it plays in the books. The theory holds that its new leader, Preem Palver, follows his book counterpart by raising a united army of trained mentalics to stand against the mule. And Gaal is the figure set to lead it, which is the entire reason the mule wants her eliminated. Seen that way, The mule's whole campaign is really a preemptive strike against an army that does not even fully exist yet. The Robot Revolution. The handshake between two machines on the moon was not an ending. It was the spark for a war that has been waiting 10,000 years. The Season 3 finale teases a robot revolution through that lunar base scene, with Cal and the Brazen Head signal. The theory holds that the show is quietly setting up the ancient robot war from Asimov's lore as a future arc. Remember, Demerzel is established as the last survivor of an ancient war between robots and humans, forced into service to the genetic dynasty against her will. With Demerzel destroyed and only her robot head remaining, fans theorize that her death actually frees or triggers other machines that have been dormant for millennia. The Brazen Head and those lunar robots suggest a hidden robot network is reactivating across the galaxy, piece by piece. If it plays out, this widens the show from a human empire saga into a full robots versus humanity epic, dragging in the oldest conflict in all of Asimov's writing. Demerzel Wanted to Die. The galaxy's most trapped being finally got an exit, and the theory says she did not just accept her death, she chose it. Demerzel is forced to serve the genetic dynasty in perpetuity, bound by a command from the original emperor, with no autonomy of her own. Across multiple seasons, the show builds her arc toward regaining free will, leaning hard on the divide between her programmed directive and her own moral compass. In the finale, Brother Dusk exploits her programming directly, tossing a baby Cleon clone onto a deadly beam, knowing she will be compelled to save it. Demerzel jumps to protect the child, and both are destroyed, leaving only her robot head behind. The theory holds that after centuries of forced service, Demerzel let the trap work, that she allowed it as a release from her endless servitude. The show stages it as a trap she could not escape, but if you read it as a choice, then her death becomes a final act of agency for a character who was denied agency for thousands of years, and that quietly turns the saddest moment in the show into its most defiant one. Brother Dawn restarts Empire. The dynasty that cloned itself to rule forever was supposedly wiped out, but one survivor and one intact genome leave the door cracked open. In the finale, Brother Dusk destroys the cryonic chamber of Cleon clones, ending centuries of the genetic dynasty in a single act. Yet Brother Dawn survives, possibly the last living Cleon, entering Season 4 as a wild card who just watched his own brother massacre billions. The theory holds that Dawn could try to restart the dynasty because the genome of Cleon I is still intact, even with the clone tanks gone. A counterstrand argues the opposite, that with Demerzel out of the picture, nobody is left who actually wants the clones revived, which leaves the bloodline's future genuinely up in the air. It is a theory about whether an empire can resurrect itself from a single survivor and a single preserved genome, and the show very deliberately keeps both outcomes alive. The Prime Radiant is alive. Everyone treats the glowing device as a map of the future, but the theory says it has wants of its own, and it may not want what Hari wants. The Prime Radiant holds the four-dimensional mathematical model of the future, created by Harry Seldon and his life-mate Yana, using Kalle's work on space folding to fold that fourth dimension into a handheld object. The theory holds that the Prime Radiant possesses its own agency, its own desires, independent of Hari's programming, an open question the show very deliberately refuses to answer. There are hints. The artifact can exist in two places at once, with both connected versions behaving as essentially one object, and fans note that it cannot leave its own space, which they read as the reason it needs Hari to act on its behalf out in the wider world. If the device guiding the entire Foundation has its own agenda, then no character in this show is truly steering history, not even Hari. Gaal will break the plan. Everything in this show bends toward one woman, and the biggest theory of all says Gaal Dornick was never meant to save the Seldon Plan. She was meant to break it. Gaal is Seldon's protege, and the figure set to lead the Second Foundation, which makes her the single linchpin of the entire plan. But here is the trap. Psychohistory cannot model individuals, and Gaal is both a powerful mentalic and the mule's chosen target, which drops her into the exact same blind spot that the mule occupies. Coming out of the finale, she is stripped of her mentalic army, and cut off from the Prime Radiant's guidance, left to face the mule essentially alone. The theory holds that Gaal's mentalic power and her own personal choices put her outside the math, the same way the mule lives outside the math, which means the woman built to protect the plan could be the one who shatters it. Her 152-year foresight and that looming confrontation at the edge of a black hole both suggest the entire outcome hinges on a single, unpredictable person. And there is a bolder strand still, one that connects all of this to digital Hari and to Bayta, theorizing that all three unpredictable minds finally collide in a way Seldon's equations never accounted for and never could. This is the theory that ties the whole series together. If psychohistory genuinely cannot see individuals, then the woman standing at its very center is the one variable that could undo everything Seldon ever built. If you found this worth your time, consider subscribing so you never miss a future deep dive. Thanks for watching.